Anders will get to torment in the same division the Minnesota Vikings, who cut his older brother. So I'm all for that. If I can get Anders Carlson to beat the Minnesota Vikings for his brother, it was all worth it.
A big topic from this weekend, one that we look forward to every year, because not only do we love our Auburn football players when they are here, we as the family celebrate them, follow them, flock to them wherever they go, even most of the time. Well, some people probably would disagree with me here. If it's a professional team, if they head there, you can't stand. For me, I don't latch on to many professional teams outside of really the Braves. But professional football, that's really the case for me. I just follow my players where they go, and I'm rooting for them. And that's really how I decide. So the NFL draft is always kind of a repositioning for me. Where am I, who do I need to be focusing on? And the Auburn Tigers had several names entering the draft this year. I'll run a list for you real quick. I think this is the complete list I had from Auburn. Derek Hall, Tank Bigsby, Owen Papo, Colby Wooden, Shedrick Jackson, John Samuel Shanker, Iku Leota, Anders Carlson, Marcus Bragg, Killian Zaire, Brandon Council, Marquise Burks, Morris Joseph, and Kalen Newton, who technically was not here this year, but was here previously. And obviously he's the brother of Cam Newton, so all that plays into there. We count him in this list. As of the recording of this episode, I believe we are sitting around 10 or so people that have either been drafted or found a home in terms of free agency. Still much more to go, I'm sure, and others will find opportunities outside of the NFL too. But let's focus this segment in on the NFL draft, and we'll start with our draftees. A really good group. I think there was one that maybe surprised me swapping in and out, but your draftees this year, not surprising really: Derek Hall, Tank Bigsby, Owen Papo, Colby Wooden, and Anders Carlson. So your initial thoughts, Austin, about the NFL draft 2023 for our Auburn guys?
Yeah, love seeing it. Love seeing our guys get drafted and picked at the next level. Always fun to see what fits they have and where they end up. Love watching all the videos of Auburn and others the guys getting the call and having some dreams come true. And so really thought it was really cool. The Derek Hall, obviously the first Tiger to come off the board and go into Seattle. Couldn't happen to a better guy. Yeah. Super excited about that. I absolutely love Tank Bigsby going to Jacksonville. I think that is going to be super, super, super good fit for him. One of my best friends, Jacob Coley, is already planning on how to get that jersey. I know it. Our good friend Clint Richardson, a big Jaguars guy, couldn't be happier. I think that is a really good fit for Tank. I think he is going to be really successful, and a skill position player like that is someone, we've got Darius Slayton, but I think Auburn fans are really going to like if Tank Bigsby can make a name for himself in Jacksonville. I think we'll see a good following of that team. And then, like you mentioned, Anders Carlson getting drafted to the Packers. We have another Carlson brother who's going to try and make his name as a kicker. I think Anders could definitely break in up there in Green Bay. They've got a great kicker, but he's aging, so I think it could be fun for him. And so Anders will get to torment in the same division the Minnesota Vikings, who cut his older brother. So I'm all for that. If I can get Anders Carlson to beat the Minnesota Vikings for his brother, it was all worth it.
Oh, Austin, I had forgot all about that. That is beautiful. So Mason Crosby is still their kicker, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
okay, and he's been around for a minute. So that's kind of what I thought too. I'll be honest with you. I'd even done a video here on the YouTube for ETC Network, kind of giving my thoughts about who would and wouldn't get drafted. I had substituted him for Iku Leota just because of the injury stuff that he's been through. I didn't know what the kicker priorities for a lot of the guys, and that's not me thinking he couldn't get drafted. I was just trying to take a best guess. So I was really pleasantly surprised to see that happen. I do have an affinity towards the Green Bay Packers. I've got family in Wisconsin, and I did grow up somewhat of a Packers fan. So that makes me happy. And I like the situation for him. I like the fact that he's going to get to grow up under a veteran and get himself completely right to the, professional, obviously different uprights, different schemes and strategies about when and how they utilize kicking in a professional league. So that was a big surprise for me. You brought up the Tank situation. I'll just be honest with you. That second night of the draft, I'm sitting there on the couch and I look up and something just told me I saw Jacksonville on the board. I had no inkling. I wasn't on Twitter, nothing. I said, they're about to take Tank. And Jessica, she's sitting next to me, even looks up and watches too. And Tank comes across the board. I had no clue. Like, there was something about that situation. I know very little about the NFL, but just enough to be deadly that felt right. Do you think this could be a good fit for him?
Oh, I really do. I think they obviously have Travis Etienne with Trevor Lawrence down there on a young offense, but Travis Etienne has a lot of the speed. I think Tank can be a lot of that power and inside tackle back for them with a good 1-2 punch. I think that is a really, really, really good spot for him. I really like it. I think he's going to really thrive in that situation down there. He stays in the Southeast near family with being from Georgia. I really like that situation. I think that might be one of the best situations for an Auburn guy in this draft. You also mentioned Eku Leota, who it really surprised me that he didn't get picked up. I really thought he would go kind of later toward the end of the draft, but it ended up not going, but found a really good spot in Carolina. I think he's going to have a really good chance to make it from that undrafted free agency class and have a really good shot to show out on the team or show out where he can get a spot somewhere else. So that he was who I was surprised by. And I think you have a list of the rest of the undrafted free agents.
Well, and just a reminder, because I don't think we mentioned where they went yet. Owen Papo went to the Cardinals.
Yes.
Colby Winn also went to the Packers. The Packers are trying to make me happier because they, in my opinion, they drafted way too many Alabama players the last few years. I mean, I understand I'm being petty, but I am what I am, and I is what I is. But John Samuel Shanker to the Raiders. Shedrick Jackson is staying a Tiger as a member of the Bengals. Killian, these two were this morning too, early on Sunday morning. Killian Zaire going to the Texans, and then Brandon Council to the Jets. So in my eyes, these were the ones that I thought all had a chance to maybe get drafted. Most of those at the back half, probably not, but maybe there's an outside chance. But we're at least going to get picked up early, and we're really just waiting on those last few that entered themselves into the draft to be eligible to get jobs. But outside of those other names, Austin, or those last few names that we haven't talked about, who else sticks out to you in their location?
Well, that's a good question. John Samuel Shanker, probably. They, as a tight end, record-setting tight end at Auburn. They lost Darren Waller this year, traded him away. So there's a tight end spot open there. I think it'd be hard for him to kind of take over that spot, but there's, opportunity for growth, an opportunity to be able to show what he's got in a, where everybody's kind of even at this point. Everybody's fighting for that spot. So I like that for him. The other guys, it's hard to project with Zaire and Council on the offensive line. Right. You hope that those guys can show enough to be depth pieces maybe. And then Shed, that's a crowded wide receiver room in Cincinnati, but good guys to learn from. And so I hope that is a learning experience for him that benefits him too.
Well, and Shed too, we know he had a great pro day and showed that the athleticism is there. He's shown that during this time here, but his pro day especially showed that. So my hope for him is, even if he is in a crowded room, that he can find himself in a good situation where he, does enough to remain part of the team. And then you never know what happens. There's injuries all the time. You never know how you might slide in, find a role on special teams, things like that. And before you know it, you're out there catching a pass. I mean, Darius Slayton, a lot of people thought was underutilized. And you look at what's happening with him at the New York Giants. Is he wide receiver number one? He may have a role change this year. I don't know. But he's still continued to be a prominent member of that receiver corps after having no one hardly look at him going into this thing. So I'm not going to sit here and say Shed is going to do the same thing, but it wouldn't surprise me if he does. The only other thing that I find interesting here, Aaron Rodgers moved it over to the Jets, and Brandon Council has a chance to block for him. So I don't know how I feel about that, being somewhat of an offended toward the Packers fans.
Sure. And you touched on it too, Kyle, that we talked about the NFL, but there's also now all these other opportunities that have, become very real opportunities to play football, pro football in the United States now with the USFL, the XFL. And so with a lot of these guys who are undrafted free agents and are going to get to go through camp, they might not end up, let's say, it might not work out for them to make the cut of a team, an NFL team. They only can take, 53 at one point. You might be on the wrong side of that line, but working hard enough to make sure you can have a good reference of those teams to make one of these maybe quote unquote lesser teams and work your way back up and find playing time is key. So I have no doubt our guys will take advantage of the opportunities they've been given and do their best. And I can't wait to follow all their journeys.
And if I could get a prediction from you on who we're talking about the most when we come around to the NFL draft next year, out of these guys that were drafted, found, or free agency homes, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Give me one name.
I'm gonna say Tank. I'm a big believer in Tank down in Jacksonville.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. Of course, Derek Hall obviously would be the easy betting money just because we know the talent he is and the individual he seems to be. You think that's going to be a good meshing point for him when it comes to finding a legitimate spot on a team and finding contributing time. So I think there's a lot of good options, but Tank may be the best. We'll call it dark horse, but one to really watch for. And maybe we're talking about a year from now.